just stopped in on you. The gold, same as usual. I shovel tons of this no good blue stuff to get just a little speck of gold. I always told you, Comstock, you're only wasting your time. I shoveled a whole mountain away last year, and all I got was enough to trade to some liquor. Virginie, if this muck I shoveled away was worth 2 bits a ton, I'd be a man.
The California Trail had been in use since 1841, competing against the Oregon and Santa Fe trails as settlers' lust for expansion could not be contained. Inspired by Warhawk President James K. Polk, who enforced manifest destination, this newly used term, quipped by journalist John O'Sullivan in 1845, they believed it was within their rights, sanctioned by both their leaders and God. But it would be the year of 1848 which altered the destiny to which the California Trail was traveled upon, beating out the other two by far, having 250,000 people travel on the road to perdition. Crossing the 2,000-mile trek was fraught with dangers, ironically having very little to do with Native American ambushes, contrary to Hollywood's interpretations of the wagon train sagas. It's estimated that 1 of 10 immigrants died along the California-Oregon Trail from 1841 through 1869. About 10% of the deaths were inflicted by diseases, and maybe as high as 30,000 during a 20-year period. Smallpox, cholera, and dysentery were the main causes. People passed on diseases through sharing wagon spaces, sharing food, water, and milk, and simply defecating along the way, if not in the rivers they crossed. The other causes of death were as such: drownings, gunshot wounds, mostly accidental from men who didn't know how to use guns in fear of Indian attacks that rarely occurred, falling off wagons and getting trampled on, getting kicked, dragged, or tossed off by oxen or mules, even bison stampedes on the Great Plains, rattlesnake bites, and scorpion stings, and of course, the mother of all mothers, Mother Nature. Within a month's time span following the new year, California embraced 2 life-changing events. The first was the discovery of gold in January, and the second was being annexed as a territorial state after the victory from the Mexican-American War by February. The aftermath opened up a Pandora's box. While the gold rush brought people from all over the world into California, they brought with them unrealistic fantasies. When reality had hit, and it hit the majority of people hard, as many did go bust, they realized in order to survive, they needed to find another means of survival, having absolutely nothing to do with gold. They still gambled their odds, as people often do, and a handful of busters were just that group of folk to take those high-stake risks. By the time mining proved to no longer be a viable source of income, other avenues were taken. First cousin to William Woods Buster Jr. in Texas, and only 1 year older, Michael Woods Buster abandoned his home in Tennessee in 1849 to begin a new life at the ripe old age of 58. He resettled in the township of Boone in Greene County, Missouri, bringing with him his wife, Elizabeth, and 5 of his 9 surviving children between the ages 15 through 34. His other fully grown children eventually headed off to Texas to join their extended family, except for William Anderson Buster, who had been living in Alabama since the mid-1840s. After toiling away 7 years, Michael decided to take a different route to make some quick cash. He observed how Greene County was one of the hot spots where Texan Longhorns were driven on their way to either Sedalia or St. Louis. So, in December of 1856, he sold his land in order to buy 330 heads of cattle to transport to California. The demand for beef had been budding just over a decade, having its roots spread out of Texas to New Orleans, Ohio, and even as far as New York. But when the California gold rush made a dramatic entrance, beef became the alternate gold. Whatever struggles Michael endured in the past, this was his only opportunity to accumulate a small profit. When he brought Texas cattle from Missouri into California, it's not known how much of a profit he made. It was enough, however, for him to buy a farm in Anderson Township where he made Sonoma County his permanent home, dying at the age of 80 in 1871. At the same time, he may have portioned some of his funds to help with his son's legal fees, William Anderson Buster, or William A., as soon as he settled into Sonoma, and to also help his grandchildren who recently became fatherless. perhaps even helped to pay off some of his son's gambling debt in Sacramento, because it seemed a bit odd as to why Michael would travel almost 200 miles from Honey Lake to where he needed to conclude his cattle business. Most importantly, perhaps it was his son who beckoned him to come to California in the first place. By January of 1856, William A. was arrested for embezzlement, and 11 months later, Michael sold his farm. In May of 1857, William A. was finally sentenced, and 4 months later, Michael finally made it to California. William A. Buster arrived in Sonoma County at least a year, perhaps 2, before his father. After he married Margaret Clark in Tennessee, they briefly lived in Alabama, where his oldest son, John Clark, was born in 1846, but then moved to Missouri, where his third child was born in 1853, and named after the state. 3 years shy of turning 30, William A. seemed to have struggled finding his place in the world. One of the reasons, he may have had a gambling problem. While he attempted to put down his roots in Sonoma, he was hired as county treasurer. The temptation was mighty persuasive, and sadly he was found guilty on 4 indictments. 1 for authorizing gambling within the county and was fined $300. 2 loaning out the state funds and was sentenced to serve 2.5 years. 3 dipping into the state funds for his personal use, another 2.5 years. And 4, embezzling money from the school system that he had actually pled guilty to, adding another 3-year sentencing. William A. never directly admitted to stealing $13,000 through $14,000 from the county safe, but suspicion fell upon him by the Board of Supervisors. After the judge asked him why judgment should not be pronounced against him, this is what he explained.
I wish to state to the people here how all came about. If I say anything incorrect, I want to be corrected. I don't know that Mr. Wickerman, the district attorney, has had any cause to do so, but I think he has not only prosecuted, but persecuted me. In his argument to the jury, he said that my attorney had not even proven that I had previously sustained a good character. I was born in Tennessee and have taught school about 10 years of my life, and I defy any man to bring anything against my character up to the time these indictments were prosecuted, and I don't want any disgrace cast on my family. In the early part of my official duties, I did not know that there was any exceptions taken. After I borrowed the $2,000 testified by the High Sheriff, I started to Sacramento on the 4th of January, 1856. I deposited the money at Sacramento and went into the mines on other business, and remained until the 16th, when I returned to Sacramento and settled with the state treasurer, and came down to San Francisco and loaned to Manafee $2,000. When I came home, I was surprised to hear that I was reported I had run away, and some of my securities had withdrawn, that it was known how much money there should be in the treasurer, and I was raised right out of my boots. I met all the warrants presented and was then easy until July 56. Gentlemen, I have borrowed money of many of you, not by dollars, but by hundreds and thousands in my business, and paid you back honestly. Now, as to the August report, I did make a previous report which the Board of Supervisors accepted, but did not publish, and I was censored, and also charged with not having made a report going back and including my previous one, and am charged with using $2,000 of public money, which I had raised to make up the amount of the August exhibit, which I neither admit or deny, but I think the district attorney took a very ungentlemanly course to make it appear that I was delaying the Board of Supervisors and trying to borrow money to make my exhibit.
During his speech, William A. was emotional and wept periodically. He tried to lay the blame on a gambler in Sacramento, Joe Neville, the real culprit who had cheated him out of the $2,000, $52,000 by today's standards. He failed to admit no one forced him to gamble, and that he shouldn't have used money belonging to the county's education. Apparently, he hadn't been the only one to be tempted with the county's monies, and apparently he had been there long enough to rouse suspicion, because the Board of Supervisors were swift in taking actions against William A. when they turned his name to the sheriff. He also failed to mention what happened to the entire $13,000 he robbed from the county, equivalent to $338,000 today. Perhaps that was part of the money he claimed to pay back honestly. The San Francisco Bulletin outed him as a man worse than a defaulter. At the foot of his speech, he concluded,
I was then delivered over by my securities to the sheriff and had gone to jail, where I have been ever since. Many reports were circulated against me, and I understand that they threatened to take me out to the jail and hang me. All I could hear was through my family. No man could come. He was denied admission either by the sheriff or jailer. I don't know which, nor do I care. I was told I'd be punished to the extent of the law, and I don't believe there could have been a jury in the country but would commit me. I was without money and without counsel. I told C.P. Wilkins my situation, and he offered to dole it for me. He was in bad health, and I asked Temple to assist. He said he could do no good before this community, but he would assist me all he could. I made an application for a change of venue, but was denied, and was advised to run away. I could have done so and been gone long ago, but I'd rather hang than to acknowledge the crime by running away, and thereby saddle it on my family. I expect if I live, to serve out my term and come back here, for if I cannot live here, I cannot anywhere. I don't make these remarks with the hope of influencing the court. I want them to do their duty, appoint the time they see cause to allot me, and I will go and try it. I have nothing more to say.
In a crowded courtroom, William A. returned to his seat where he masked his face with his hand and sobbed his regrets inside his sticky fingers. In spite of his attempt to appear noble, in spite of his remorse, he was sentenced to 8 years at San Quentin. That day wasn't his final plea, however. In November, the San Francisco Bulletin reported once more in regards to his friend circulating a petition asking the governor to pardon him, pitching with a pun, Buster wanting out for a new bust. It ended on a sour tone and criticized Williams A's punishment as nothing more than a mockery to a rogue with money or influential friends. Due to the large sum of his crime, which was never adequately resolved in restitution, Governor J. Neely Johnson ignored the petition, intending William A. to serve his full 8 years. As the fourth Anglo governor in line to serve, he inherited considerable debt. Rampant corruption and lawlessness overran by both criminals and vigilantes. Looking over William A.'s records, he was less inclined to pardon a convicted embezzler. In other words, the young and anxious governor was in no mood to put up with his shenanigans while attempting to clean up the state.